So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream recorded for Ustream.tv and hopefully recorded for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. Apologise if it's a little bit jumpy, but Ustream's not recording the best this week, so I don't know why. Excuse me, a quick coffee slurp. So I'm working in imaginorphia, and I put out some professional watercolour paints in a palette yesterday, and I made an orange, I made a purple, and I made a couple of greens. So the greens I was using with the purple I've mixed together to make some kind of nice greys. So it's always nicer to mix your own greys. So these purpley blue greys are quite nice. They're almost like an indigo. There's some indigo greys, so because there's a bit of blue in there as well, we can get some really nice greys going, and I think that's quite nice. Now this one's actually a bit of a greeny grey, so it's nice to stay together, greeny grey for his head kind of thing. Now this is my least favourite page. It's the two robots made from tubes and nuts and bolts and all sorts of other things, so it's my least favourite page. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Well, I was going to try. Suzanne wanted some colour book time. So this is almost like dirty water, and sometimes you can get the most beautiful muted colours by doing that. So we've got a bit of a shadow down here. I want this to come lighter, and this is a bit of a rigger, this particular one. So I've got three paintbrushes. They're my Dale Rowney Graduate Rigger. I've got a number 3, a number 2, and a number 1. This is the biggest one, and I think it's probably time I moved to the smallest one. Actually, I just want to go under here, and there's so much paint on my paintbrush that I really want to just kind of use it up. And I'm hoping that, again, using this same brush with the same paint, but it's a little bit more diluted now, I'm going to get different tones and different shades, and that's going to really work well because it's the same metal, it's just the light's hitting it at different times. So we need lots of different facets, and that's how you would do a wine glass. You would take one shade of colour with different tones, and it becomes a little bit more unified. So this is still getting paler and paler. I just touch that colour again, I'm going to get a deeper tone this time. Oops, sorry, that's the cat. The cat. Just put a little tone over there. So because this is a rigger, it's holding a lot of colour and a lot of dampness. So it's allowing me to manipulate different tones without doing anything. So again, I like that easy way of working. And then when your brush feels you can't get any more out of it, just go back for a bit of a dip. And I want to just put those in there a little bit darker. And I want that a little bit darker because we want that highlight to show up on top. I quite like this set. This is one of my favourite sets because of the shades. They're just not as long as the other riggers, so they work well. so they work quite well. I think they might be a different kind of tubey thing, so I'm going to go into this purple. Oh no, trouble's here now. So this is kind of a more colder metal, and I think that might be a colder metal. So we don't want to go too different because we want the same tonal value, which in this case is a bit of a wishy-washy, very well watered down colour, but we do need to give it a little bit of something. And I can't do that middle unless I used a small brush. Maybe I should go to a smaller brush and just take, if I took a little bit off here, that's given me a paler version of that. So I didn't think I'd like this, but actually it's growing on me. So again, I've got a little bit more of that. And I think this is what you need to do, is just be a bit brave and just go for it. And doing those darker, I think. But again, I want that to be lighter, because it's going to be a highlight of that one, and that wants to be lighter as well. So these are a bit small brushes, but of course it's a very small space. This Kierby Rosanne one is a small space. So I'm just going to take the thinner one, and I do want a bit of a quite a dark colour. And I always test, because that is a bit pinky actually, so it wants to be a bit more grey in there. Just put a drop in there, and that could be a little bit darker as well. So you can build up your shades and tones. Oh, I was going to get it. Is it ready, darling? Okay. Just shut the door, darling, because Alfie's been an Alfie and he's opened it. Thank you. So I've got two colours there. I was going to do those little tubes, but again we can change that colour and go for a blue-grey. I quite like that one. So we've got a bit of a blue-grey going on now. And I might just do that because I'd like a little bit of variation there. I just tend to buy riggers purely because they work really well for me. If you were in an ordinary brush now, it would be fine, but you just have to keep going back. I had thought about working with this one. This would be fine, but when you press down and it's a fat, normal, round brush, all the colour floods. But when you have a rigger and a drop of colour at the back, the damp brush allows that colour to give a different tonal shade as you go along. And I really enjoy that, because that means that I'm not just doing a dead watercolour, which I would if I was using an ordinary brush. And I think they're adequate for colour books. I haven't decided what the tubes to do, but again, so we've got a pinky blue, a pinky grey, we've got a blue grey, and we've got some green greys going on, and we can make some quite nice colours with those. So I'm going to be using the number 1 brush, I think, because it's quite good. It's long enough to give me the rigger status that I want. I'll just do that brush. So I keep saying I'm going to buy some more of those, but we've got a skull and crossbones. I'm going to do this big one here, so I'm actually going to go to the bigger number 3 brush. I think a reddy orangey brown would look quite nice. So I did spray this with a bit of a spritzer, so I found these quite a long time ago in the pound shop, and they're quite a fine mist spray, and I think you got about 8 for £1. And the sprays you buy, one is the too wet as a spray, and the other one is I was object to paying quite a lot of money, so this gives out quite a fine mist spray. So, but I'm actually going to hold it quite a long way away, so it's almost like a hairspray. So there's just some very fine, if you can see those very fine mist, because I don't want to wet it. I do not want that wet. I just have to stick that on a little round baby white. So that's quite a nice one. That, I mean, you can spray it lots of times into a well if you want more, but I want less. So that's activated the orange quite nicely on top. And this is how I work, quite messy. So this was the purpley grey, so what I've done is just dragged a bit up to make that orange a brown, but I'm going to keep going and hopefully turn this into a brown grey. So now it's not a pinky purpley grey, it's a brown orangey grey, so I quite like that. So I'm going to just take that, because there's a lot on the brush because I mixed it, and this is a very quick way. It's very peaceful, it's very quick. You can do this in a little fold up paper palette because you don't need a lot of room, and you do need a bigger pot of water though. This isn't a tablespoon of water because I'm working differently, and again I like that I've got the same paints but I'm working differently, so that's allowing me to paint in a different way with the same medium. So again, I like that idea. This has turned out to be a little bit too brown, but I think I can get away with that. I think it'll be fine. And it really is the dirtiest little puddle here. It really is the dirtiest little puddle, but there's enough to do this section. If you were doing a lot of things and you wanted them all to be the same, you wouldn't work like this, because if you're ever doing a big surface of the same colour, you need to make enough, because you will never make this colour again. I can get close to this colour, but it would take me hours to do that. It's very rare that you ever make the same colour, so you've always got to make enough colour for what you're doing. Now, because this is what it is, I'm not particularly bothered about it, but if it was going to be something very important, I would have made sure that I'd made more than just that puddle. And I just like this way of working, and because it's a very soft one, this is going to look quite interesting. Even though I didn't like the shape, I actually think it's going to be okay. I might actually enjoy colouring this, because I find these colours, they're very much like the graphite. I've made some muted greys, so I want to work all in greys if I can. So the underneath of this here, I'd like that to be just that different, just that little bit different, but so I've just touched that purple colour, and this is a little bit wetter than I work as well, so this paper from Kierby Rosanes can take it though. And again, I want that to be that little bit darker, so I'm just going to test it. It's more now of a grey, so it's lost that orange, so I'm going to put some of that with it to see if we can get that back. It's near, but it's not exact. It's a tone darker, which is what I wanted for under here. Just put a tiny bit more in there. And again, that's going to take that little bit darker. And you could do that with every facet that's different. And so, although it's the same material, it's the same metal, it just shows up slightly different. And then that gives that a bit more of a variation. And it's still a nice, quiet way to work. I quite like that, actually. And follow that round. It's sometimes a bit difficult when you're making things up, because these are obviously pretend things that don't really exist. And again, you just want a touch darker here. And that's too purple, so we go back. No, it is a touch brown, but if I put a little bit of green in there, I can take that back to a grey. And it's quite unusual to work. It's quite nice to work in these unusual colours. You know, is this a blue grey or is this a grey brown? And that's sometimes quite interesting. That you're finding out. You're taking colours almost to the next colour. And that's when you get the muted colours, because it's you can't tell if it's one thing or another. And these are quite small spaces, so with no real rush, we just want to keep that colour. So again, that's just a touch darker. And really, I'm making dirty water. That's what I'm doing. These colours are definitely not bright. But by the time I finish this, I will have hundreds of greys. From warm brown greys to red greys, purple greys, green greys, blue greys. So you can get some really nice greys. And I keep testing them on this page because I don't want to go too purple, because the purple ones are here. I don't want it too purple. That's just a little bit, probably too purple. So add a bit of green in there to knock it back to a grey. And just keep changing these. I'm going to go back and do some of these darker, as if they're kind of like little holes, so you don't have to panic. And of course this little brush is just going in these areas quite nicely. I hope the light's okay. Everybody see that all right? So this is basically muddy water, but you can get some quite nice effects on muddy water. So I just touched the tiniest amount of green in there and it just took that to a different colour. I might leave the skull and crossbone white because it might stand out quite nicely. So that one's the number 3. So I'm going to go in with the number. In fact, I'm going to get the 10-0 out. I thought I got it out, but I must have put it somewhere. In fact, it's such a favourite brush that I always buy 2. And they're about £2.50, this one. This is the liner, Daily Round Graduate Liner 10-0, but it's a nice, it's almost like a fine rigger. It works the same way, so you can get some quite nice dark effects. So I put purple and orange together to do a brown, and then I put green in there. Just want to touch more green just to make it a grey. So orange, purple and green, the 3 secondary colours, make excellent, excellent greys. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Yes, it's a strange way of working, but actually it looks better than I thought it would, if that makes sense. I'm not a mechanical person, and I kept putting off these pages because they were my least favourite. But then I thought, no, come on, I've got to go in there and do something that I want to do. So I'm playing with my greys, which is a good practice, because all these, especially the greys and the brown greys, if you're doing a scenery or a landscape, these greys will be wonderful in tree bark. The greens will be in leaves. So it's a really good way to get some greys going and practice making greys. Don't get Payne's grey out of a tube. I know it's quick and easy, but you will never ever get these beautiful colours. Mixing purple and orange and green to get your greeny greys, your bluey greys and your browny greys will give you, there's going to be hundreds of greys in there, so many you couldn't count them, purely because I am just touching in the center of here. So I've got a bit of purple and a bit of orange or a bit of red, and it was a bit of a kind of a greeny color, so I touched, it was brown, and to get that brown back to being cold green, grey, I put green in it. So now I've taken that brown and made it back into a grey. So I'm actually quite enjoying this, because as I say, sometimes you look at a page and think, but there's always a way around it. You can either play with your favourite mediums or you can experiment, and this was an experiment. And they may not always be greys, they may turn into browns, and you may say that's a purple, but it's a grey purple. The idea, and the other idea is, because I'm a tight Yorkshire lass, is I will be using up all that purple and green. And remember, I made those greens, they didn't come out of a tube. Those greens are from cerulean blue and lemon yellow. The purple was made with French ultramarine and alizarin crimson, and the orange was made with cadmium red and cadmium yellow. So the 3 secondary colours were made by me, and then I've kind of split them again. So these are tertiary colours, these are the colours in between, but I'm not going that way around the colour, I'm going inwards. If you mix more than 3 colours, you're kind of going inwards, and when you get to the middle you can make black. That's how you make black. Never make black out, never take black out of a tube either. Make your own blacks. You can have your reddy blacks, your warm blacks, your cold bluey blacks, your browny blacks. There's all sorts of blacks, and of course a shadow should be from a grey to a black, but never out of a tube, unless you take black and add a lot of red to it. You know, take the red to black by adding black, and then as soon as it becomes a reddy black, it becomes a black red, you're there. That is a gorgeous black. It's a warm black. Lamp black, I think, has got blue in it to make it a blue black. Oh, thanks, Suzanne. So I hope everybody's okay. I hope everybody's still with me. Ustream seems to be playing up a little bit. I'm going to work just down to this section here, and then I'll go back. So I've got that kind of greeny grey. I'm staying with this little rigger because it just happens to be okay. So you can get some really nice greys by adding purple and green together, and then that touch of that orange for warmth. Oh, sorry, the next door's dogs are barking, so. And again, that's quite a nice different shade. And by just touching slightly different, or just adding a little bit of a damper brush, you get a completely different shade. But they're all connected, so it still looks like it's still all made of the same metal rather than a lot of different metals. And there's quite a lot of fun. So the other thing would be good to do is to do the facets on a wine glass. If it was a cut wine glass, or even if it wasn't, there's so many different shades of grey that you can, once you've mastered that, that's a good little experiment to do, is drawing a wine glass and then trying to colour it, because you have all these different facets made of the same material, so you can really get some nice colours going. So I kind of got a bit of a greeny grey going on there. And this middle section is just basically colour that normally everybody would just throw away. But if you mix them together, you get these greys. And they're very, very nice. And again, just that little bit different to play with than going in with your bright colours. But I panicked when I saw this page ages ago, and I thought, oh, I'll never be able to colour that. So it just shows sometimes you can come up with an idea. I'm going to go back to my number. I'm going to use the number 1 rigger. And just keep the little for fine detail. So I dunk it into water, twist it to a point on a paper towel, and then I can just go in here and mix some more colour, but that's a bit bigger space, that. So if we take this is a bit of a purpley brown, because I've gone back into the purples. So this is purple and green. And that's why browns, I don't buy brown colours either. I like to make my own browns, because you can make your nutty browns with your French ultramarine, and you can make other browns. So greens and purples make beautiful browns. It's just that touch of orange that's making them grey. And this is very muddy water, very puddles of really manky coloured colours that you would think, ugh. But the other thing is, if you put this on a white background like that, it looks like a puddle in snow or a footprint in snow. So if you're doing watercolours, this muddy water, if you use your water pot water, it's probably like this. That's how loose and wet I'm working, but it looks very much like snow drifts and snow. On a white background, you don't do anything, you just kind of put a few lines and it becomes snow marks in the snow. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh yes, Suzanne, blue blacks are gorgeous. They're very cold though. Red blacks are warm, blue blacks are cold. But I'm basically using muddy water. That's how diluted this is, and yet these colours are so muted. And they wouldn't be that muted if I added any more pigment. And especially these, because of course these are professional watercolours. These are these so just a subtle difference in shade makes a difference. And then you can also go back in and do a little bit more. Touching once more changes everything again. And especially with these kierby rosanes, you can, again, there must have been a little bit of that blue from the French ultramarine. Just going to do this one next here. Do this section. I like this little bit of French ultramarine there into that same brown, purple. I'm going to do this darker, wasn't I? Because they're a bit too small to mess about with. And because this is a rigger, most of it is damp, so it's diluting this as we go along. So it becomes a shade lighter every time we use it. And again, that's why I like the riggers. And this is extremely diluted paint, but it's not very damp. It's dried instantly. So again, they look like watercolours, but they're not. Just swapping to my little tiny brush so that I can just get up in this top corner here was where I made the purple. So that's the purple, but of course it's watered down a lot now. And then up here there's a little bit of red. So I'm going to put the red in the purple. So that's a really, really warm grey now. So I want to cool it down, so I'm going to touch some of this green. Not in all of it, because I like that. Drag it over here. Oops, and it's become a green again. So again, just keep adding them together until you get the grey green that you want. And I think I might have grey greens on the tubes or pipes or whatever they are. So there's a couple here, so I'm just going to try this. So I want a two-tone, so I'm going to go, so this is kind of like a dark olive. That's how I would describe that. And of course we know how to make olive. We make olive with an orange into your green, because it's the red in the yellow and the blue. You can make it by adding red, but orange has got yellow and red in it, so you can make it by adding the orange. So it all depends on what you're doing. It's very, very interesting is colour mixing, especially the tertiary colours, which was the middle colours. So we've got the primaries, and I have 6 primaries, 2 blues, 2 reds, and 2 yellows. Then that makes me a purple, orange, and yellow secondary, and then everything in between. So the blue greys are, sorry, the blue greens are tertiary colours, the yellowy greens are tertiary, the orangey yellows are tertiary, the reddy oranges are tertiary, and the pinky purples are tertiary, and the bluey purples are tertiary. But the bright orange, the bright purple, and the bright green, they are secondary colours. But everything in between. So I wanted to, if I could have afforded the Caran d'Ache colour 2s, I was actually going to put them into a colour wheel on a round tray, so you could see all the tertiaries and all the primaries, the secondaries, and then everything in between. And you'd see that a yellow is taken from a yellow all the way to an orange in about 20 different shades. But the Neocolour 2s are just out of my price range, really, for those. I keep thinking I might find them on eBay, but it's something that I've been after them for 25 years. I bought my first ones, and they weren't called Neocolour 2s, they were just called Neos. But so if you find Neos, but not they've got to be water-based. The other ones are called Neos, but Neocolour 2s I don't think you'll find. I did find one in an old shop, but I tested it. She let me test it, and I knew instantly. I can tell the difference. They're waxy. They're the watercolour ones. I doubt whether you find them now, unless it's really in the outback. Back or beyond. So I'm actually mixing the greys up together now, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. Just having a play. The only reason I use eBay is if I need something that's second hand, like the Derwent pastel pencils. You know, you will not get those at all brand new, because they're at least 20 years old. So again, I quite liked, oops, I've just done that little one there, so quite managed that one. And then we'll go back over here. It's remembering where your colours are, really. I want that brown to stay out on its own, because I quite like that. I think it's supposed to be a digger claw, is it? Digger bucket. So if I zoom out a minute, you'll see the difference colours, what it looks like. So it looks completely different, and yet there's quite a lot going on in there. So I'm actually quite enjoying it. I didn't think I would, because, as I say, I looked at these thinking, oh my, metals, ugh. So I'm quite pleased with myself. I found something I'm enjoying, playing with these greys. And again, that's what I say, out of the 3 colours, or 6, not to be easy, it's 6 colours. There isn't a colour on the planet you can't make, so you don't need hundreds of colours of everything, and especially not watercolours, because I'm going to see just how many pages I'm going to get out of here and what differences. So I'm going to be working from this palette for quite a while. And again, the nice thing is it's completely dried. So I'll zoom back in a little bit so you can see. So welcome everyone to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream recorded for Ustream.tv and hopefully recorded for YouTube if Ustream behaves itself. So I'm working in the kierby rosane. Oh, and do excuse me, I don't drink coffee normally because it gives me indigestion, but hubby's not here to make the tea. He's normally very good at making a cup of tea every hour. And I just can't struggle with a tea bag, so it's a case of a spoon of coffee in the bottom and a drop of water. And I can't ask my daughter because she's not very well. Bless her. I'm just going to do this little one here. And that is definitely a dark olive, I would say, that one. But there comes a point where you say, is it an olive or is it a brown? Is it a green or is it a brown or is it a browny green? And that's when it becomes a bit more fun. When you can go back in and play. I don't mind going in and playing a little bit. It's when you have to go in and spend hours. I mean, this is going to take me long enough. Although it's fairly quick, is this, I have to say. It's fairly quick. So I like something like this that I can just do, as I call, fairly quickly. And then I have other things that take me a long time. So I'm still playing in this kind of muddy area here. And I'm not contaminating the orange or the red. I can wipe that off with a baby wipe, but there's tons of colour on there. This is professional watercolour. And there's something about buying expensive watercolours that when you do that, it's going to be a bit orangey, but never mind. When you do that, you're very frugal with it. And this is when you come out to do this. I mean, I don't think I've ever done this before. When I made my greys, I made them... I can't decide if I want to colour that completely different. But again, it's a fun colour book, isn't it? It's a fun colour book page. I am the boss of my colour book, to coin a phrase. So I had thought about trying to get this to look like reality, but then I realised I think I'd like to have a bit more fun than that. So I just have to move the camera slightly down. I'm going to do this area here. So I'm going back to my big number 3 Daler Rowner rigger, graduate number 3. And we were in the greeny olive colours, weren't we? So I'll just go back there. Yes, that will be fine. Now in theory it should be slightly different shade to the one on the left. And you didn't want it to be too much, but you did want it to be. And I could have done with the shadow coming outwards rather than going in, so never mind. So you can get a little bit of a highlight going. And because this is pure watercolour, you can get rid of that line just by teasing it. There's no harsh lines, they're going to like that. And tease that up. And the rigger's doing its work with its damp brush, so it's taking what colour it's got left and teasing it through. So I've got a really nice highlight going on there. Yes, Suzanne. So the boss. How do I make brown? Well, there's lots of ways to make brown. Orange and green is probably the best. But in the orange and green, you've got the yellow from both the green and the orange, and you've got the blue in the red and the orange. So sometimes you can blue and reds make purple, but only if it's the bright pinky red. If you take the other orange, let's go on a bunny trail. So we'll take the red, just do it on here. We take the cadmium red and a touch, I don't really want to put that in there, better be good because I'll ruin it, and take a bit of cerulean blue. In theory you shouldn't get purple because but if I said to you put blue and red together, and somebody takes a alizarin crimson red and a French ultramarine red, that's a bluey grey, isn't it? So you can put red and blue together and put a touch of yellow, or you've got yellow there, sorry, orange, and green. And it depends which brown you want. If you want a cold brown, see, I've got a green now. So that's a kind of a sandy, oops, that's a sandy brown. That's a very light yellow ochre brown, that. Because yellow ochre is only yellow with a touch of red in it, touch of orange in it. That's what yellow ochre is. But actually there is a tiny little bit of blue in it, because obviously that's what in the green. So I've just made yellow ochre. I just made lots of browns. It depends on the blue. And it depends on kind of what brown you want as well. So that's a darker green. That's an olive green. So now I want some, I need something to warm that up. But I don't want to put alizarin crimson in because that will definitely spoil it. That's an even darker olive because that's what the purple does. I think it's cadmium red, but yeah, it just wants a bit more red. So now we've got the russet brownie reds. So although you're mixing your own, it takes a bit of time to get. I think I put the wrong purple in there. That's purpley blue, so that's a very nice, that's a little bit like a nutty brown, a dark, cooler brown, because that was French ultramarine. If you wanted the other one, because that's got the pink in it, the cadmium red didn't have the pink in it, but if you put alizarin crimson, you'll end up with a purple. But you've got purple browns then, so it depends what kind of browns you want. So here we've got a dark yellow ochre. Oops, am I in the dark yellow ochre? And then we've got a reddy brown. But the red you use has got to be cad red to orange. And then a hint of a little bit of French ultramarine. Probably cobalt would be good because that's in between the two colds. But mix a nice green and then play with it, because again it depends on how much yellow you've got in your green, and it depends on how much of the ready blue you've got in your green, because a blue purple is made by just adding alizarin crimson, but it's such a fine balance. But anything with alizarin crimson is going to go purple, so that's why the different reds make different colours. Did that make sense? Oh, hi Carrie. Hi Kerry, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Hi Kenny. Anybody else that's popping in? Yeah, I'm afraid you have to keep logging in. It's terrible. Ustream is definitely not very well this week. So you can get your ready warm browns, your olivey browns, and your brown nutty browns. And that was by adding French ultramarine. But again, if you had alizarin crimson and French ultramarine, you'd end up with purple. So you need to keep your colder yellows and your colder blues and your colder reds. So, oopsie, back to my little... Again, that's kind of a nutty brown grey, but it's still a bit of a grey. And this is almost taking them a step further. So I'll go back to my number 1. So I'm still working with these puddles in here. I'll just, oopsie. Do you think it will, Suzanne? Suzanne says it might settle down, hopefully. So I had a purple and a green because I was working in the book with purples and greens. So I've mixed the purples and the greens, and I've got some grey olives and some purple greys, and then I've mixed on the top here to get some warmer browny greys. So I'm still mixing. Obviously, if you were doing this with watercolour, this is probably what your water for cleaning your brushes looks like. But that's why these are really muted colours, and they're a bit more unusual. I sometimes like being just that bit more unusual. So I kind of panicked when I saw this page, thinking, oh, I don't think I'll find anything I want to do with it. And then I thought, these colours remind me of the Graphitint, so you can actually make your Graphitint colours. They won't be as good, but it saves buying more. And I didn't know that. I've just made that up now. I've just made that up now, that's what these remind me of, the Graphitint. Because they're all shades of grey, and that's what Graphitint is. It's a black pencil with a tone in it. Not sure I'm going to do the odd screws that are kind of kicking about a bit. So just do this bit here. And just by moving slightly across on my little palette, I can manipulate colours to be just one shade away. So I quite like that. So I like the olives for the pipes, I think. So we've got some pipes coming out here. I might swap to... I'm on number 1 rigger, actually probably going to be the best one. So in my greens, I've got a bit of a purpley brown. And again, I keep playing, so I quite like that. And again, most people would just throw these colours away thinking, ew, that's a dirty palette. But you would miss out on all these amazing shades and tones of greys. I wouldn't really think they were purples. You could call them purples, but I would call them greys. I mean, this is an olive colour, but it's a very, very muted olive, so I would call that a grey. So thanks for stopping by, guys. This is a live stream, hopefully, from ustream.tv, recorded for YouTube. I'm going to swap to my little brush. Hopefully recorded for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. And apologies if everything's that little bit jumpy today, but Ustream's having a spot of bother, bless it. It's not behaving itself. And I always test on my little bit of paper, because they might not want that colour next to that colour. But actually as a contrast I do. And again, another peaceful way of working, just picking things off, deciding on the colours. And I'm using up paint, as I say, that would normally be thrown away. And I'm practicing on making greys. You should always make your own greys. They should be they should be made out of the colour that you're using. So if you are colouring a green tree, then you want to add, I've been adding purple, but of course purple's got red in it. So if you add a touch of the complementary colour and some water, you should eventually get a grey. And that grey is going to be so much nicer to use as a tonal value than just getting Payne's grey out of a pot or mixing black and white. Because you will have a greeny grey. If you were doing a rose with a shadow underneath it, use the beautiful red and add green to it or purple to it and make a red purple, a red grey. And of course it'd be so nice because it'd be so connected. Because basically the red rose where the shadow is, it's the same colour. Nobody's taken the colour out of it. It's exactly the same colour. It's just the light is not hitting it in the same place at the same time, in the same way. And it's the reflection of the light that creates shadow and highlight. So the rose is exactly the same. It isn't a different coloured rose underneath as it is on top. It's just all to do with light. So you want to stay with the same colour, but just make it a little bit more muted. Anybody I miss? Welcome to Bunny's Designs. So we're having a bit of a play, making greys out of my centre palette from yesterday. So again, most people just wipe that away. I had a purple and I had a green. So I've added a bit of orange, and that's given me some olivey colours. And a bit of purple, a bit of French ultramarine has given me some kind of darker purpley blue colours. But they're all shades of grey. 50 shades of grey. I think there's probably 150 shades of grey on here. So I should have to call it 150 shades of grey if we count them. So you've got to remember to just keep ticking these over. And then if I go in a different place for a different green, it doesn't really matter. It's still grey. The tonal value is still the same. It's just a slightly different mix. There's a little bit more green in this one than in the other one. And again, I like that sometimes. So I'm basically painting with dirty water. But how wonderful those subtle shades are. Has anybody else got any questions? Watching the tight Yorkshire lass be even more frugal than she is normally. And it is basically dirty water. That's just what it looks like. But when you put it on a white background in a small amount, it really lends itself to some really nice greys. And by adding more than 3 colours together, especially if they're 3 secondary colours, you are going to get greys. Because that's all you're doing. Every time you mix them, you're taking away an original colour. And it's quite a dry way of working as well. So we don't have a lot of wet watercolour things to think about. And if you're clumsy like me, that's quite nice. Sorry about that, I've set a camera, just done that bit there. So I think this could be a little bit colder, so I'm going to go back in my purples. And again, it's dried, so I'm just going to try to reconstitute it a bit. The purple cold greys are quite good for metals. Because every time you go in there with something else, you change it slightly. And then I do want a tiny bit of a darker one for that there. That bit there's gone quite dark now. Oh, hi Carol, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else that's popping in? Oh, well, I went through the, what did I do yesterday? Yesterday it was, oh, I don't think it uploaded yesterday. I'll pan out and I'll go through these colours again. So yesterday I made 6 colours. I think the video did upload. I haven't had a chance to, maybe I haven't uploaded it yet. So yesterday I was working which one did I do yesterday? Oh, they're the graphic tints. Actually, oh no, they're the other ones. I don't know where graphic tint is. I'll put them next to graphic tint next time. Oh, just found another one. But yesterday I started. Is it this one? Yeah, I started this one yesterday, the bear in Imaginorphia, and I took my 6 Winsor & Newton colours. I have other colours as well, but I did a colour chart with the 6 colours. So these are Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolours Series 4. The Cerulean Brew is Series 3. And Series Elysian Crimson Series 1. So they're all different prices, and it's all to do with the pigments. But I like those colours. So I have Elysian Crimson and Cadmium Red. So Elysian Crimson is a warm pinky red. cadmium red is a cold red. A cadmium yellow is a warm yellow. Lemon yellow is a cold yellow. Cerulean blue is a cold blue. And French ultramarine is a warm purpley blue. So out of those 6 colours, there isn't a colour you can't make. Oops, am I still with everybody? Because it looks like I'm buffeting. It looks like I've gone off. Am I still with everybody? Oh, Carol, yes, I was talking about your little book. Is it holding up well? Because you've got, I put some little colours in the front, didn't I? And I think you had, did you have graphite tint? My hands started to be poorly when I was doing that. So those 6 colours are all the colours you need, because the cadmium yellow and the cadmium red are going to give you the brightest, gorgeous colour, which is actually cadmium orange. The coldest blue and the coldest yellow is going to give you a bright green. The purplest, warmest blue and the purplest, warmest red, pinky red, is going to give you the brightest purple. So from your 6 colours, 2 of each primary, you have got your 3 secondary. So I then played about with the greens and the purples, and I was making these colours here. But then I decided I can actually make them again, actually. I'm not too far away. But then today, I want to know how many I can get out of this entire little wheel. And I think I can do a book. There's a lot of colour in there. So I've taken this secondary green and secondary purple, and I've been mixing them together to make greys. Because remember, on the colour wheel, you've got your brightest colours, and then the more you mix them together, the greyer you get, the more muddy water you get. So right at the centre, you can make black. If you mixed all these colours together, you get black. I'll do that one day, but greys are good. So again, I've been mixing brown greys, red greys, yellow greys and greeny blue greys. So there's hundreds of different variations of greys, and I'm mixing them with secondary colours to get a grey, and then I'm adding a little bit of blue, yellow or red to just give me a little bit of an edge. So you make most of the greys by mixing together the 3 secondary colours. And most of these you would call muddy water. This is like dirty water. If you washed your colours out in a pot of water, this is what you get. And I was saying that we went to a watercolourist, and it was a snow scene, and we used dirty water from our water pot to make the puddles and the shadows in the snow, so they can look like footprints in the snow, made by dirty water. So normally this would be wiped away so you could start again, but I'm getting hundreds of greys from my muted colours here. So sometimes you could plan to do a bright page and then think, right, I want to work in these gorgeous greys. I've got brown greys, blue greys, purple greys, orangey greys, browny greys. And I panicked about that. You do for your brightest colours, Suzanne, yes. For your brightest colour. If you want a dull orange, then you take the furthest away. You do alizarin crimson and yellow. If you want a darker grey, a darker green, like here, I made a bright green. I think it's on a video that I did yesterday, and then it wasn't dark enough, so I added some French ultramarine, and that made it very dark. So then I had to put more yellow in it. So if you want a dull green, if you want a shadow, a dull green, you add the furthest away. So that would be the warm yellow and the warm blue. But on the colour wheel, these are nearest. So the brighter the colour you want, the nearest you want. So that's why I put that green and that yellow next to each other to make the green. So that one's called a blue green and that one's called a yellow green. That one's called a yellow orange because it's going to make orange. That one's called a red orange because it's going to make orange. This is called a red purple because it's going to make purple. This is called a blue purple because it's going to make purple. This is a blue green because it's going to make green. And that's why if you look on the colour wheel, the reds turn to be pinky red before they get to purple. And the cold reds turn orangey red before they make orange. The yellows turn colder before they make green, and the blues turn colder before they make green, but the blues then turn warmer before they get to purple. So if you look on a colour wheel, that's what you'll see. Oh, hi Fancy Lime, welcome to Bunny's Designs. So you can, again, greys. This is where I'm getting the greys from. I'm putting a green together. So the green is these two colours. And then I'm putting a purple to it, which is these two colours. So if you mix 4 colours together, you get grey. So again, if you have a proper colour wheel, it will show you going in, mixing all the colours together more and more and more. And if you mix them all together, you'll get black. But I like taking colours from, is it a grey or is it a green? Is it a, oops, I've got some orange on there. Don't suppose it really matters. So that's how you can play with your colours. But I did a lot of colours. It's watercolour, so it'll blend, but never mind. This is pure watercolour, so that's about as good as I'm going to get. So did that make sense? Well, you don't need to get one, Suzanne. Go online, go Google one. As long as it's a good one, Google one. Google a colour wheel. And then there's the other book I was going to go through with colours. But the best thing to do is to go online, Google one, and then print it out. That's the best thing to do. But you do need a good one. As I say, I studied it at uni, so whoopsie. Look for a colour wheel. I so wanted to do this. This is a sketchbook for colour, and I've never seen one better than this. So wanted to do this. I should go through my colour. I've got my colour books actually, because I made greys. I took every colour. I took these 6 colours to grey. So it's like, when is it a green and when is it a black? But it's a greeny black, so that was cold. I took a French ultramarine to black, and actually I lost that one because French ultramarine and black makes Payne's grey, and the background I painted because I broke my elbow, so I had to make everything with a big decorator's brush. So I made squares, and then I just coloured them in like this because it was easy with masking tape, and pulled them off, and one of the squares disappeared, and it was because the background was Payne's grey in acrylic. And I kept thinking, I made 24 squares and I could only count 23, and I even got the tutor to come over and said, which colour did I miss out? And then it took a while, and I went back to her and I said, you didn't get it, did you? And I said, I did. Is that if you add a variation of French ultramarine is Payne's grey. I'm looking for a colour wheel, which they should be in this book, and can't find one, but that's yellows. So that's brilliant yellows. This is chromas to ochres, flesh tints, bright reds to oranges. These are cold reds. And then we've got medium reds. So you've got light cadmium, and it tells you the names. And then you've got your pinky reds. So we've got quinacridone red, light, Windsor red, which is slightly pinky. The cadmium red, no, it's cold. Cadmium red, a permanent red. Cadmium red deep is darker, and then we've got the darks, deep reds, but these are the pinky reds. So we've got geranium lakes, we've got ruby red, vermilion, Elysian carmine, Elysian crimson, rose madder, carmine, and maroon. They're kind of warmy pinky red, so they're good for making purples, but they are terrible at making browns because they've got too much red in them, too much pinky red. Oh, we have one of those. And your magentas, so we've got permanent rose, that's a little bit more pinky. Deep magenta, but ordinary magenta that you have at the printer's ink, that's the same colour. Then we've got the purples. Then we've got the blues. Of course, these purples, next to the purples are the blues, so the French ultramarines, Prussian blue, phthalo blue, deep ultramarine. These are going to make purples. As you get to cobalt blue, you're getting a little bit cold, and cerulean blue. They make good greens because we've got these turquoises which are in between, and then you've got the greens. So that's what my colour wheel normally looks like. And then of course we go to yellow ochres, raw siennas, and brown ochres and brown siennas. So I've actually made yellow ochre today, and I didn't know how to make it, but I would say that's yellow ochre, because I made the brown with orange. So there wasn't a lot of pink in it. So it's a colder brown. And then I made this colour, which is like a brick red, and that was an orangey red, a warm red, a reddy brown, like Indian red and things. So there's all sorts of different things you can do with your colours. I was looking for a colour wheel though. I cannot believe there's not a colour wheel in this book. But if you want to learn about colour, this is quite spectacular. The Artist's Colour Manual. This little one is brilliant because it shows you about using dyes and pigments against all colours. But I bought this one recently here. Right, so this is just purely about pastels, but pastels are near pure pigment, and a colour wheel. So we have here we have a brown. So if we turn this to an orange, so here we have quite a nice kind of a browny colour, and we've got cadmium yellow and violet. So the cadmium yellow is when I put the orange in there, because of course it's got cadmium yellow in it, so I got a tone of brown. But there is a bit of pink in the cadmium yellow, and there's a little bit of pink, well, there's a lot of pink in the violet. So you need a little bit of pink to get the brown. But if you put red permanent rose to cadmium, let's try that, you're going to get an orange. It's not going to go brown enough because you need the blue in there that's in the violet, if that makes sense. So French ultramarine, so we've got that cadmium yellow, but if we put it to the cobalt blue, we're going to get a dull blue because we've got a dull yellow. We haven't got that bright yellow. The cadmium yellow and the French ultramarine make a bright green because they're next to each other on the colour wheel. The brightest one is the lemon yellow and the cobalt blue. That's the brightest green. But you can get a duller green by putting cadmium yellow and French ultramarine. But if you put lemon yellow, if you put cadmium yellow and French ultramarine, they're the furthest away on the colour wheel, you're going to get a very dull green. It's a lovely green, but it's dull. You're not going to get a bright green. So that's what, Suzanne, that's what you said, wasn't it? Oh, I hope I haven't confused anybody. I've done one or two colour ones, and I think I got most of it right. I kept calling one red, the other wrong red. But so if we have orange, and we take orange, oh, we've got orange there. So we've got an orange and cobalt blue, we've got a dull purple. But if we've got permanent rose and cobalt blue, we've got a purple. But if we put French ultramarine there, we get a brighter purple. No, I might try that. It says it's actually brighter. But orange and purple. Orange and purple make a dull purple. Orange and green make a brown. But if we had a permanent pinky red and an orange, you'd get a reddy brown. You'd get the brick colour. You'd get a reddy brown, but you wouldn't get a brown brown. Again, Payne's grey with orange. Well, if you did a purple, so let's get a purple. Keep going. I want a purple and a, oh, it's a purple and blue, sorry, purple and blue. You see, we've got green and burnt sienna. You get a brown. Payne's grey and yellow. But French ultramarine and burnt sienna, that's what you get. Ultramarine and burnt sienna, you get Payne's grey. That's Payne's grey. It's French ultramarine. So we've got a French ultramarine and a violet. We're going to get a blue. French ultramarine and orange, we're getting a kind of a grey, because it's the wrong type of blue. If we put a cold blue and an orange, we're going to get just nearly a brown. So it depends on the colour, your primary colour. Did that make sense? So although you can mix one red and one brown, one blue together, and you will get purple every time, but you need the cold red or an orange. So a cadmium red and a French ultramarine, so that's a pinky red and a purpley blue, you're going to get bright, big, bright purple. But the cadmium red, the cold red, you get a dull purple. Did that make sense? Now this is actually 4 pastels, but it's a basic colour wheel. The principles are the same. The colours will vary slightly, but the principles are the same. You need 2 primaries of each colour. You need 2 reds, 2 blues, and 2 yellows. Otherwise you will never get the full colour spectrum. So I hope that made sense. That makes sense. There is another colour wheel in here. I think it starts with colour. Yeah. There is a bit of a better colour wheel here. The complementary colours. And then the complementary colours is another way to make grey. It's another way to make grey. So in order to get an orange, you need a cold red and a warm yellow. In order to make purple, you need a purpley blue and you need a pinky red. In order to make a bright green, you've got to have a colder blue and a bright yellow. If you want a duller version, use the outside colours, the furthest away primaries, and you will still get green, but you will get a dull dark green. So I really like talking about colours, but if you try to make blacks from and greys, you get some really kind of gorgeous colours. So I really like playing with these colours, and they're exactly the same palette as these colours. All I've done is mixed that. I made kind of it's kind of a Payne's grey, indigo blue, very dark, cold blue grey. And I've mixed it with this dull green, which isn't really a bright green, it was a dull green. And by mixing those two colours together and a little bit of orange, I've come up with some greys. I've got green greys, I've got brown greys, I've got blue greys, and I've got purple greys. But they're all a tone of grey, or a muted colour. It's not a bright green, it's a dark olive green, and I really like playing with that. But the book is that's the best one, but it takes a lot of reading, is this one. And this one is, this is Salter's, but if you look Fields, I've forgotten his name, but I'll look at it in a second. Fields Chromatography. And this is all about pigments and the different names of the colours. It's quite an old book, is this one. But if you go online on Google, it's free to download. It's on lots of sites to download free. Oh, very good, Suzanne. Very good. So this one is Chromatography, but its other name is a treatise on colour and pigments, and it's by, bear with me, it's originally by Mr. W. Oh no, that's Windsor. Wait a second. I have to find the original gentleman's name. It might not be in. But this particular one has all these wonderful old sketches and line drawings of different brushes, and it was by Windsor Newton. So there's lots of easels, and I would think this is turn of the century stuff. So it's got some really nice things. And this is the £26, 5s. Empty, it's £6. And I think it has 72 colours in this set. But £26 was quite a lot. When you think Mr. Darcy was, it wasn't Mr. Darcy, was it? I was trying to think of somebody else. Although Tisa didn't do very well, didn't do so bad actually. So I love these old drawings. But this, without the drawings at the back, all this about colour is available. Because this was a revised version by Thomas W. Salter, but the original one was Fields, but I can't think of his Christian name. And it's Fields Chromatography, or the theses. What did I say? The treatise. Fields Chromatography, or the treatise on colour and pigments as used by artists. And I just cannot remember the gentleman's name, but if you type this into Google, you will get, I think it's an ebook. So that will be on, I think it's on Amazon, but it's also on something else. But one of the ebook pages brings it up. And it's free to download. But it goes into the colours, and there are almost 100 of each, I think, if I remember rightly. I counted the blues, I think, once. There's on classic colours, and it starts off, and it goes into what they are, how they're made, and what are they used for. So this is a chemist talking how artists should paint, which is quite funny. So we've got on colours and pigments, on neutral white, on primary yellow, primary red and primary blue, on secondary orange, secondary green and secondary purple. And then with the tertiaries, they're called citrine, russet and olive. And then we've got semi-neutral brown, semi-neutral marron and semi-neutral grey. And this is a little bit of a different way that they mix the colours together. And I showed that on my video last week about mixing colours, and it was a different way of mixing them. Their colour wheel looks slightly different, but it gives these beautiful colours that we forget about, which is the russets, the olives and the citrine colours, the light greens. So it's a slightly different way. Let me just have a look. Doesn't say about fields, does it? A slightly different way, but it goes into so much detail about each individual colour, its name, how it reacts with other colours and what it's used for. And it's free. Best bit of all, it's free, but it is on an e-reader, but you can download it to a laptop and sit and read it, or a computer screen. But it is free, and it's really, really good. George Fields, thank you, Suzanne. I'm going to have to put that in there because I always forget. Yep, George Fields. Can she find a pencil? And it's an extremely good book, and as I say, it's free. It doesn't have the wonderful sketches at the back from Windsor and Newton, but I'm not really bothered about that. I mean, I was lucky, I bought mine for £20 or so, but I think they're going for 100 or so. 122 colours, thank you, Suzanne. If you have a look online and Google Fields chromatography, you will see how they colour mix, and it's slightly different to our colour wheel. But again, it teaches you about, if you want to try and get a certain brown, it teaches you how to do that. I'm just looking for my other colour book, my big purple colour book. Have I got my other purple colour book? It's disappeared. It's disappeared. Sorry, I can't find my other colour book. I don't know why it's disappeared. It should be put there. So that was the other thing I was going to do, is when my hands give up, I'm going to go through a colour book flip, because I've got a lot of artist books. And so that's what I thought I'd do. But I was having a bit of a play in here. So again, quite enjoying that. Always put a kitchen roll. I've got these round kitchen rolls. I think they're quite sweet. Oh, Kingo says she's got it in her eye, but yeah, it goes into a lot of detail, and it's worded different because obviously it was written a few hundred years ago, a couple of hundred years ago, I think. I think it's before Victorian. I think Thomas was Victorian. I think it was written 70 or 80 years before that. It's basically when they started to make paints from chemicals. Before that, we were just scratching earth and using them. So although I've got my primary, my secondary colours, by mixing secondary colours together, you get muted greys. And that's what they said. If you mix all your colours together, you're just going to get mud. Well, I actually quite like mud. I like mud. 308 colours, yeah. There's about 80 blue, and I counted the blues and the reds. But it talks about rose madder, and it talks about all the different reds, and it tells you what they are, and it tells you what they're used for, and it tells you if you mix certain reds together, you get different things. So there's no point if you ever see a set of colours, paints, whatever, for mixing, and you have one blue, one yellow, and one red, don't get it, because it's just no good. If it has 2 blues, 2 yellows, and 2 reds in it, that's not a bad set. Sometimes they put a green in there, sometimes they put a blue. They always put black and white. I mean, I've got like 10 tubes of white paint in there because I just never use it. So it's a really good way to learn about colours. And I say, just Google colour wheel and just study a couple of them, because some of them might not be best. Have a bit of a look, have a bit of a think, or go to the library and get a book out, and then you can think, well, actually that blue shouldn't be there, it should be over there. It doesn't take long, but of course there's lots of colours in between here as well. You've got your orangey reds, and you've got your red oranges, you've got your yellow oranges, and you've got your orange yellows. Whichever is the predominant one is what goes first. Then you've got your greens, you've got your yellow greens or your green yellows, and then you've got your blue greens, and you've got your green blues. So you've got greens that are bluey, and you've got blues that are greeny. The same with your blues, and same with in between blues. You've got blues that are not really very, very purpley, and they're not very, very cold. Cobalt blue's a bit in the middle. It's a little bit warmer, cobalt blue. It's a little bit warmer than Celelium, but it's not a bad blue, isn't cobalt blue, but it's not as purpley as French ultramarine. The reds, you want a pinky red. The pinky red is for, will never make a bright orange. It just will never make a bright orange. You need a cad red. So if you want something with that, you need at least just 6 colours in. As I say, sometimes they put a brown in there, sometimes they put a green in there, and sometimes they put black and white. Maybe I've got any questions? So I've gone a bit on a bunny trail there. Sorry about bunny trail. So actually I didn't think I'd like this page, but it's growing on me a bit now. So I'm going to be using just really, really muddy colours, mixing greens and purples, and then putting a touch of orange in there. Gives me a browny grey. A touch of French ultramarine in there will give me a blue grey. Then the purple grey is slightly more purple than green. The greeny grey is slightly more green than purple. And then everything in between. So you're mixing the greys with just the secondary colours, green, purple and orange. But then you can vary that by adding different primaries. So I quite enjoyed that actually. I'm quite pleased that I've done that, because I really wasn't looking forward to colouring in, even though I love Kierby Roseanne. Metals weren't really my thing, and robots, so I'm quite pleased that I found a way to colour that I am actually going to enjoy doing it. So there are no pages in this book I do not like. So I'm going to stop the video there. So thank you for watching. Hopefully YouTube will be uploaded, and thanks for watching.